I want to welcome you all here today for this wonderful conversation that is brought to you by Foster Media Connections Youth Voice Program. We're going to be speaking with some foster youth who are members of the LGBTQ, community, and they're going to be talking about their experiences that they have faced while in foster care, dealing with those who operate and work in environments that have foster youth, and how their experience with their homophobia affected them and impacted them. And so I'm so happy to have you all here today. I wanted to just tell you guys a little bit about myself. So my name is Raquel Wilson. I am the proud program manager of the Youth Voice Program. I've been here almost 3 years, and in these 3 years, it just has been a wonderful experience, being able to use not only my experience, but also provide a platform for other foster youth like myself to not only amplify their voice through writing opportunities, but also be able to amplify their voices through vocal opportunities like this, intimate settings, these type of safe spaces. And so I am so very happy to have you all here today. Just a little bit about the Youth Voice Program. So the Youth Voice Program, through workshops, writing, poetry contests, paid contributor roles, and intensive fellowships, Youth Voice provides writing opportunities to young people who've had lived experience in the child welfare and juvenile justice system. We also have placed a huge emphasis on supporting foster youth and working with foster youth who are in higher education settings. We are starting an internship program. We already have an intern, but we're starting a new externship and internship program so that we can start opening and helping foster youth get through doors that they might necessarily not have been able to get through. And so I'm so grateful to be here, to be able to use my voice. If you would like to stay updated about all of the wonderful things that we are doing, we host these webinars every month, and we change the subjects and we dive into some really powerful conversations and topics. Please follow us at our newsletter and on our social media platforms to stay informed. We will be dropping the newsletter information in the chat. And so at this time, you should see a quick survey pop up on your screen. And this is just for us to assess where you are, where you came from, if you're a former foster youth, if you're a caregiver, how did you hear about us, so that we can figure out more ways to get the word out, more ways to try to find other foster youth who are interested in being panelists, who are interested in sharing their experiences. We also cater to sometimes audiences where we want to bring in caregivers and social workers to talk about their experiences and how they operate in spaces that impact foster youth and what they have done differently to provide knowledge to the other people who, who work with foster youth as well. And so I want to allow the time for some of you guys to please fill out this survey so that we can just better figure out ways that we could continue our mission to amplify the voices of foster youth. Yes, so at this time, you should see your survey results pop up on the screen. We have a few attorneys in here, a lot of attorneys actually, with some caregivers. There's some foster youth in the building. If you would like to get connected and learn about some of the wonderful opportunities we have here at the Youth Voice Program, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll drop my email in the chat sometime during this conversation. At this point, I want to take the time out to not only thank our panelists, but introduce our panelists for being here today. I want to read off their bios and tell you a little bit about them. And I know that we do have some panelists who are having some technical difficulties that might be still joining in on the conversation. So they'll just hop right in. But I do want to say before I introduce our panelists that this is a safe space. So please feel free to share as much as you want to. You can share as little, you can share as much as you want to. This platform was created for you to amplify your voice and in hopes of not only empowering yourself and other foster youth who possibly have the similar experiences or can relate to what it is that you have experienced, but to bring knowledge to those who are working in environments that may, have a different opinion, but still need to do the work, still need to, be, compassionate and consistent, no matter what, identity the foster youth represents or identifies as. And so at this time, I want to thank our panelists, first of all, and I want to introduce them to all of you all. So first, I would like to, I'm not sure if Amanda is our issue here. I'm not sure if she's on the call. Let me make sure first before I say, hey, let me introduce our panelists. And so, okay, so first things first, I'll start from the left. Okay, so yes, she's here. So yes, please feel free to drop your organization in the chat, where you're from, introduce yourself. We want to know how did you hear about us, and why you felt like, it was important for you to attend, this type of conversation. So thank you again. So we'll start from the left to the right. So, and please forgive me because I am so horrible with pronouncing names. So I hope that I don't mess these up. But so Manpreet Unsigned is a foster youth advocate, a wellness practitioner, and a social work student at the University of California, Berkeley. She believes in the power of healthy community, honest discourse, and connection. Her trajectory as a youth advocate was impacted by her lived experience in foster care, and she believes all youth deserve a healthy household. I hope that I pronounced your name correctly. Please unmute yourself and let me know if I said it correctly before I continue.
Oh, hey everyone. So yes, thank you, Raquel, for your care in pronouncing my name. My name's actually pronounced Manpreet. Um,
Mompreet. Okay.
I like to say the A is for awesome, and my last name is Singh.
Thing. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I did not want to continue before I make sure that I said that. So thank you so much for being here
I
today. We're
appreciate
so
that.
happy to have you. And so next, I would like to introduce Elijah Slinkard. I hope that I said that correctly. Um, they is a transgender 23-year-old UCLA 2022 graduate. Woo-hoo. They majored in American literature and culture, specializing in LGBTQ studies and film studies. They were in foster care system for almost 3 years, from ages 3 to 5, due to their mother's incarceration, raised in several cities throughout Orange County and Los Angeles County. Elijah has a deep passion to connect with and serve Southern California's queer communities, foster youth, and otherwise disenfranchised communities. Their future goals include entering academia with a focus on American lesbian culture and history, and then serving their community through nonprofit work. So I want to thank you, Elijah, for being here today. Please unmute yourself. If I mispronounce your name, I want to make sure that I correct myself before we continue. All right, perfect. So I get shout out to me. I said it right. Okay, perfect. So the next person that I'm so happy to introduce, Mariah has wrote for us in the past. You could read one of her op-eds on our website, the imprint on the imprint website. She spoke about her experiences as a member of the LGBTQ community. And so, Mariah, I'm so happy to have you here today. She is an 18-year-old student at the University of Laverne. She is passionate about her work in advocacy for foster youth and foster care system. And so, Mariah, thank you so much for being here today, for circling back with us and reconnecting with us, and not only using your voice through our written opportunities, but allowing yourself to, feel encouraged to also speak out vocally in an open space like this. So thank you again for being here with us. And so next, I would like to introduce Sabrina Bong, who is a former foster youth, a homeowner, and a mother. She works at Tesla as a production associate, helping create mega packs. She likes to play video games and take her son on walks around the neighborhood. She wants to be an activist, helping foster youth and human trafficking survivors. And so, Sabrina, thank you so much for being here today. We really, really appreciate you. Sabrina is also a writer, hopefully a future Bay Area contributor. And so, Sabrina, we really appreciate you for being here today. Again, thank you. And so last but not least, and I know Dominique was having some trouble. I'm not sure if he joined us yet, but I still want to make sure that I introduce him because he's such a powerful young man. Dominique Ross. Oh, and he is here. Thank you, Dominique. Is happy to have you. Dominique is a Black gay male from South Los Angeles. He's a bad photographer. I just have to throw that in there. An advocate and former foster youth, Ross is currently attending Santa Monica College, major in photography. The challenges he's faced during his childhood and kinship care allowed him to preserve his adult life. He doesn't believe in excuses, but continuous growth at any level. And Dominique, I'm so happy to have you here. Dominique has been with the organization well before I even was here. He was writing pieces and doing photography work for fostering media connections when the imprint was the Chronicle for Social Change. And so Dominique is definitely a veteran of the program that has, been around and, kind of really understands, what it is that we're trying to do here and the platforms that we're trying to create. So I thank you so much, Dominique, for your continuous support and, always the willingness to always be able to show up and, talk about your lived experiences. So shout out to all 5 of our panelists. I'm so happy to have you all here today. At this time, we are going to get ready to start our discussion. And so I'm just going to pass the floor around to everybody and ask them to briefly describe their foster care experience and their experience and what that was like being a member of the LGBTQ community. And then we'll dive more deeply once we get more into the discussion about their experiences in foster care and how dealing with homophobia has impacted them. So I want to pass the floor over to Mariah to kick it off. So Mariah, could you please describe your experience in foster care and as a member of the LGBTQ community, LGBTQ community, and what that was like for you?
Hi. So my name's Mariah, for everyone. My experience in the system, it wasn't really a bad experience for me, but in a way it was bad too, because I wasn't physically harmed, but I was mentally and emotionally challenged while in the system because of the way I identified as myself. It was just, the foster home I was in it was like a lot for me to deal with mentally, and I felt like I was alone at the time.
Thank you so much, Mariah. And I'm sure that our other panelists have had those similar experiences, and we're going to dive more into that and how that impacted you more into the discussion. And so I want to pass that over to Dominique, and then all of our other panelists can feel free to just unmute themselves and hop in to talk about their experiences in foster care and how, being a member of the LGBTQ community and how that impacted them. And actually, I think that Dominique is having technical difficulties, so I will pass it over to Sabrina.
Okay, can you guys hear me? Okay. So for me, while I was in a system, being LGBTQ plus, it really wasn't that bad. I really had a very accepting foster mother who was okay with my sexuality. So I didn't feel alone. I'll say for me, the only time I felt like alone in regards to my sexuality would be towards like my probation officer or my social worker. But other than that, I had a really accepting, loving foster parents.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sabrina. And we did see in the chat that some folks were saying that they were having trouble hearing you. So if you could adjust your volume for us so that we can hear your powerful experience, you know, out loud and proud, we'll really appreciate it. So next I'll pass that same question over to Elijah. So Elijah, can you briefly describe your experience in foster care and what that was like for you? Well, I'm not sure if Elijah is with us, but Dominique, would you like to chime in with your experience as we wait for Elijah to rejoin us?
Awesome. Good morning, good afternoon to some people. My story from South LA, like Raquel said, my experience, I grew up in kinship care with my aunt. My experience more was, I would say I had to always like be in a conflict with people, whether that was physical or argument from like elementary, middle school from being placed into a bad behavior school where they didn't tolerate any of that like fighting. So I got my act together, got back into high school. So I was able to experience prom and like homecoming games and football games, which was awesome because I had to realize words was just words, regardless if I was teased for my sexuality or voice tone. But that's just a little bit of what I had to experience. You know, I grew up around gang stuff, but that really wasn't like what people would attack me about. I just knew I had to like, I guess, shelter a side of me or hide a side of me in public. So that's a little bit of, we'll go more into detail about more stuff, but yeah, that is, yeah, my lived experiences. Had to realize words are just words and you can't react physically because yeah, you don't want no criminal record. You want to succeed out here. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dominique. I'm so happy to see you. And thank you. I know you're having some technical difficulties, but we're happy to have you, and we're happy to have you being able to share your experience. And so last but certainly not least, I want to pass it over to Manpreet. I hope I'm saying your name right. I know I'll be messing it. I know I'll be mispronouncing names, and I'm so bad with this, so I always apologize. But so please forgive me, but I wanted to ask you the same question. Please let us know about your experience and what that was like for you while in foster care.
Okay, so I want to say good morning and thank you, Raquel, again for your care. Um, so my name is Manpreet. I want to say good morning to everybody on the call. Thank you for joining us to hear us share our experiences. I think it's really powerful for um, foster youth, former foster youth, people who were in the foster care system to share their experiences because I feel like there's oftentimes this like, I don't know if it's like a wall or like this air of mystery, or I'm not sure exactly what it is, but there hasn't been enough conversation. And I think it's really being in the foster care system, I was kind of like, what is this? Like, this is so terrible. Like, this is how the state intervenes and helps kids by placing them with strangers. Like, we have a lot of work to do, and we're doing it together. And so I appreciate being able to have this partnership and being able to have a platform to share and people to receive it. So I wanted to say that. And my experience in the foster care system as an LGBTQ community member, I would say that it felt like there wasn't a space for me to share that information. There wasn't a space like that wasn't acknowledged, much less celebrated. There wasn't space for us to share, right? Like how we identify. Um, I would also say there wasn't just like conversation about healthy relationships in general. We weren't talking about we weren't sincerely, I think, talking about creating healthy relationships with my family, with myself, with partners in general, much less with being a part of the LGBTQ community. So I would say there wasn't space for me to share my identity. And another issue is that there wasn't space for us to even talk about healthy relationships. And I think that's kind of like, I think we need to start there as well, right? Not to take away, of course, but I think they're interconnected, both of them.
I most certainly agree. And I always feel like that like my foster care experience played a huge role in how I have been able to connect with people. And like I feel like after I had my daughter, that like something kind of like just clicked in my mind that's like, you know, you just some things just gotta heal and let go of. But for like a long time, like I sat like, you know, in that like anger of like abandonment and like, you know, not feeling like I belonged because of like not having like no like, you know, healthy you know, I like no a healthy picture or image to look at to be like, oh, this is something that I can take away from. And so I definitely agree. And we're always looking for ideas for webinar topics. And that sounds like definitely a good one. I know our partner, other sister program, Fostering Families Today, hosted a webinar recently about healthy relationships. And so it's definitely an important topic that that we need to be speaking about and connecting with, you know, other topics that help and impact foster youth. And so thank you so much for sharing that, sharing your perspective. And so my next question is, did you ever feel you couldn't be yourself and feel freely able to identify yourself while you were in foster care? And what was that experience like to you? And who do you feel like made you feel like that? Like, was it in the foster home settings? Where was it when you were going to school? You know, where was it when you were, you know, showing up to like wraparound sessions and like, you know, different therapeutic sessions? What was that like for you in those different spaces? And I'll pass it over to Dominique, and then you guys can feel free to just unmute yourself and chime in.
Great. Can you guys hear me? Okay, just making sure. So where do I start? I would say it played a part. Like I said, I can remember just little as elementary that a teacher telling me I sound like a girl. She's like, "You sound like a girl." That's what I remember. And I just remember replying with, you know, calling her her name, and I was just so bad. But I was bad because of what I was teased, and people didn't know how to like understand that. I think I was so young, I didn't want to bring it up to people. I was like, I was embarrassed, and then not even just that. I had a sister. I grew up in kinship care, but my aunt that raised me was my mother's sister. My mother was a drug addict, so she couldn't take care of me. But my aunt stepped in, so her kids were like my brother and sister. So I have a big sister. But even at a young age, I would say MySpace days, I was probably like, I don't know, MySpace was popping when we were like 15, 16, I don't know. But yeah, I recorded a random video of myself like, hey y'all, like randomly on MySpace. And she commented like, you sound like a girl, delete this. So growing up, I had to like, all right, if I sound like this, I'm not gonna talk as much, or I'm only deepen up my voice a little bit more. But I had to realize that like I only can be myself. But that did play a lot of me just speaking up a certain around people. So yeah, I'm sorry I'm going into a tangent, but those are factors that played in that I was like, wow, like I'm just being myself, and the voice tone is a problem for you. You can judge me off that. So I have no control over that, but that was definitely a trigger for me when I'm around certain people. Like, okay, if I talk loudly, people are gonna like identify who I am, and I don't care. But it's just like when you're young, you going through that. You like, all right, let me not say much to certain people because then they're gonna be like, oh, he gay, or you know the words they will say. I don't even want to say the words that are kind of like triggering, but yeah.
And thank you so much for having the courage to, you know, relive, you know, some of that trauma and those experiences by talking about this and on this open platform. And this is a safe space. And so I want to just thank you because, you know, it definitely takes courage to all of you guys, you know, to be able to speak about your experience, and especially, you know, with this, because, you know, so many people have such a huge opinion. People have been killed because of, you know, what and whom they identify as. And it's just really unfortunate that, you know, we already feel unsafe as foster youth already. And then, you know, to, you know, have, you know, this other, you know, stigma and these other, you know, this violence, I would say, you know, placed on us sometimes because of our choice is also unfortunate as well. And so please feel free to jump in, and then anyone of our panelists can feel free to unmute themselves and chime in to answer the question. So did you ever feel that you couldn't fully identify yourself or freely identify yourself while you were in the system? And what was that experience like for you? And where did that come from? Whom did that come from?
So, not being able to like share my identity and where did that come from while I was in the system? Well, coming as a child of like, you know, Asian immigrant family, that was like something that was just like completely unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. People find it, you know, they have so many adjectives for the way that they describe it, along with unacceptable, right? And I would say so that was like the first socialization. And then along with what you're saying, Raquel, like it doesn't even feel safe to exist in the foster care system. At least that's my experience. I would say that I have a really beautiful network of current and former foster youth. And in my conversations with them, like that's been the experience too. And kind of echoing what Dominique was saying, it was like there was always conflict going on. Like every single day was a conflict. So is that a safe environment to share like more tender parts of my identity? No, it wasn't. It wasn't even a space for me to do self exploration. And I understand, like, for different people's positionality, they don't have the choice but to come out, right? Like, depending on where you're at, how you identify, some people, they're outed just when they speak. But for other people who it takes some time to like look into themselves, it wasn't even like a healthy space as a child to be able to do that. There wasn't safety to do that. So that's what I can share on that.
Thank you, thank you so much. You are hitting home some really great points that I feel like I can turn into other future conversations. You know, because we obviously can. It's so much that to unpack, and it's not a 2 hour, 3 hour conversation. You know, it's so many different elements that go into, you know, the trauma and, you know, the whispers and, you know, the aloneness. And so I just am very happy and honored to have you all here today to talk about your experience. And so I will pass it over. Oh, Dominique, did you want to chime in? Just unmute yourself, my love, and feel free to.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to throw in there because I know we were talking about like the foster care system that I did have over the course of my time in the foster care system. I had 3 social workers, and there wasn't a way to really open up to them about the things that I experiencing, maybe about me being teased or my own sexuality. That would have been appreciated to have a safe space. But what I can say is that they made sure I graduated high school on time, and they helped me with a lot. So it wasn't a conflict with my social workers. They was kind of like there for me in that sense. When you unsure what you're going through as a youth or a young adult, you still don't even know how to really say or come out right or say like, this is what I'm experiencing. I need help, because you don't know who once you open up to the social worker, all right, they're gonna say it to my aunt. All right, once my aunt know, then oh my God, this, it opens up a bag or worms of trauma or whatever. A discussion you might not even be ready for at a young age, let alone why you trying to graduate or focus on the class or whatever. So I just want to throw that in there.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Mariah, Sabrina, did you guys have any thoughts in regards to if you ever felt like you couldn't freely express yourself or, be yourself and while you were in foster care and what that was like for you and whom did that experience come from?
For me personally, so I come from a Samoan family, a Polynesian background, and within our culture, like that's a big no. They like heavily look down on that. But like for every family, it's different when people accept you and when they don't. My family, for that case, was one of the people that didn't really accept me. So when I first went into my first foster home, I felt like at that time I could trust someone, which was like my foster mom, because she was like the only person I knew at that time. But then like as time grew, like I spent 2 years of my life with that woman. And it was just I noticed a lot of things. Like you get to meet all the people that were there before, the people that came in and out and know their stories and like their experience that they lived with her, because it was kind of similar to how I felt when I lived with her. It wasn't really like, I wouldn't say it was all bad. There were some happy memories, but it was just when I look back at it and I really do think of it, it was something I would not want anyone to experience or go through. At the time, like my first social worker I had, she wasn't really involved in my life. Like she wouldn't like come and check on me like at the house like you're supposed to like meet face to face and stuff. It was just like a phone call every couple months, and it was more of having like to relate everything to me from like my foster mom. So everything that she wanted to get through to me was through my foster mom. And I thought like for me, I didn't like it because like I had to be babied and like, literally just go everywhere where my foster mom went. And for me, I felt uncomfortable because at the time I was 16 and it was just like, I don't really do much, I really just do what I got to do, like go to school and come home, do my chores and all that stuff. But my social worker, like, she didn't really create that safe space with me. Like, I didn't have that bond with her that most people would with their social worker. And it was just really hard at the time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mariah. Thank you, Mariah. I really, really, really appreciate you sharing your experience and being open about, your family, dynamic and how that impacted that, especially, I think like caregivers can take a lot from what you said, and as well as social workers too, because, they are the people who are appointed to us, and so I know that sometimes the caseloads are overwhelming, and the work is, down the road. But the one social worker that, and I'll always shout out, that made time for me, despite all of that, and made me feel, wanted and made me feel okay about, my choices, I guess. I really coined her for, contributing to my success. And so I want to pass that same question over to Sabrina, and to answer. I know that you said that you actually had good experiences. And so what was that like for you? What played, what positively, what was positive factors that helped, impact, how your foster mom, supported you, and the people around you supported you.
So like I said, I had a really good relationship with my foster mother. She knew I was bisexual. So she made me feel welcome. She made me feel included. I was included in family trips. I was welcome. Anything that was going on with me, I needed therapy, anything. She didn't make me feel bad for who I was. And I really appreciate this woman. This woman is my godmother now. She baptized me in the Catholic Church. So I have a really strong relationship with this woman, still talk to her, and I also could relate with her because I've never met a mom.
Thank you, Sabrina. It was chiming in and out, but for the most part, what I'm taking from what you said is that your experiences were good. Some of the positive and factors that made you feel supportive was that they included you, that you didn't feel like you were left out. There was a space that was open and provided for you to be open and freely speak about, your choice and what it is that you wanted to do. And so I think that that is also something that people in the audience, our audience members, can take away from what you said, is just that, just creating the open space, being inclusive, being able to create a space where foster youth can be, honest and truthful, even if you necessarily don't agree. You're in this work. Youth need, compassion and empathy and support, and so although there may be a different perspective, is it leading by love should suffice, everything. And so thank you all. The next question that I have is, I want to know if while in those, during those experiences, in those spaces, whether that was in your foster care home, when you're at school, when you went to go meet your social workers or therapists, whatever, whomever, did you feel unsafe, or did you feel like your sexuality made you a target for abuse or neglect? And I would like for you to speak about your experience. But I also want you to be mindful that this is a safe space. Please feel free. You do not have to overly share. You do not have to underly share. This space was created for you to amplify your voice, and that is through whatever means that you best see fit. And so I want to just throw that out there, and so that everybody knows that I'm backing you full encouragement and full support over here. And so I'll pass that question over to Sabrina. Sabrina, what did you ever feel unsafe? If not, and did you ever feel like you were a target for abuse or neglect? And if not, what was the positive influences that made you feel like that you were kept safe from those type of spaces?
Feeling unsafe. I didn't really feel unsafe. I would say the only time I felt unsafe, I was probably in school. Like I said, I was bisexual and targeted me. My social workers, my probation officers, they all knew I was bi, and I got offered like resources and classes if I needed, but I never felt like I was targeted because of my sexuality.
Thank you. And I really appreciate having you on this call as a panelist, because sometimes I know that we're often talking about like the raw experiences and the negative truths and impacts that have impacted us, but it's always good to have someone that has had the similar experiences as a former foster youth, but then also can speak to the positive factors and influences that help bring support and make them feel supportive, so that we can encourage those who operate and work in these spaces, and teach them other ways and other methods that could possibly work, and help them strategically connect and build relationships with the youth that they work with. And so Dominique, Mapreet, Mariah, please feel free to unmute yourself if you would like to chime in to answer this question.
I would say, so my social workers, I just feel like I wasn't honest with myself. So there was no way for them to identify. I was protecting myself. I just knew the cover up was just reacting physically with my peers, whether it was teasing, it wasn't always about my sexuality. I wouldn't say, oh my God, I was teased all the time about that. It could have been for anything. It was because of the anger I felt in myself. I couldn't be myself openly. I was like ticking. I would say it was a time where I went into a bad behavior school, a school called Little West Side Citizens or whatever. It's for bad behavior, where like they literally restrain you if you try to fight somebody. But that's a whole nother story. But I would say that school helped me because I was able to like just see it. There's still a teacher I still keep in contact with. Her name is Miss Davis. That she just had a lot of patience with me about, I wouldn't say about who I was, but just like not even caring about that aspect as far as like, all right, Dominique, you need to just get your education, do this right. These are just words. But I don't want to go off the question, but I don't think there was a time because I wasn't open and honest. I wish, I think it would have been helpful if there was a way, but I don't know how they would identify because if they asked me about anything that was going on, I'd be like, everything's fine, like there was never a time like I felt like I really needed to. I should have, but you can't change the past. So yeah, I'm feel like things are different now, right? We're in 2022. I went to high school around 2010. I'm a 90s too, baby. I think times were different, or maybe they did have resources at that time, but I wouldn't know that. But I feel like now it's like hella resources, right? Like, oh, they have this, they have like an LGBTQ alliance on campus. Like, I don't know if that was a thing. I went to Washington. I was like Washington High School where, yeah, I had to not react physically because no, I had to, it was a challenging time, but that school, the private school saved me just because like it put me back into public school because they seemed like, all right, he's not reacting to certain words, he's going to school. They even tested me by having me catch the public transportation to go to work, go to school. So I would go from home to school, which is like a 10-minute ride, but I was doing that successfully every day. So like, all right, he's going to class, he's coming back home. So I just think me not reacting about what other people could say, because people are out there could be mean, right? So I think that was very helpful because some people, public or whatever, that plays a part. For me, I just as a Black gay man, being in South LA or just being anywhere by yourself or whatever, you just are in a professional environment. It don't matter. Like, yeah, know, it could be a part-time job. It could be something so random, or you could just be buying coffee in a coffee shop. And it's something like, all right, I know I'm being whatever antagonized or whatever. So yeah, I always go off on a tangent, but that's my answer.
No, please, this is not a tangent. This is you amplifying your voice. And we want you to go off on a tangent because everything that you said definitely can provide some advice to, other foster youth. One of the things that I took away from what you said that I would encourage other foster youth who are, it's dealing with, similar experiences is to, try to find that one person or those people that you can speak freely to about yourself and and trying to connect with your inner self. I think that you stated that you not knowing who you were is one of the things that kept you protective of yourself and probably not able to connect or even afford those relationships to people who possibly would have had genuine connections with you because because of the misdirection and the misunderstanding of the feelings that and emotions that you had. And I'm so happy because Dominic, you were my baby, so I've seen you come and grow and heal, and you've watched me the same way. And so just to see you shine, and always being willing to express yourself and just makes me, just always proud of you. So thank you so much again for sharing your experience and never feel like you're going off on a tangent because everything that you're saying definitely could be utilized as a tool to not only help support foster youth, but those who work in the space with foster youth. And so, Ms. Singh, did you want to chime in and answer the question? Did you ever feel unsafe? Did you ever feel like you were a target for abuse and neglect based off of your decisions and your choice, and your sexuality? And what was that experience like for you?
Well, so I actually have been pondering on a question in the chat, if it's okay to answer that, unless anybody else wants to answer first.
Well, we're gonna so we probably have like 2 more questions to get to, and then we're gonna jump into the chat, the questions in the chat, because I definitely
Sorry
really
about that.
ones there that I want to leave some time to dive into. So no worries there. We're definitely going to dive into the chat. We probably have about 2 more questions after this one, and then we'll get into the questions in the chat. And to our audience members, as I just stated, we're going to definitely be answering some of your questions in the chat. So please feel free to drop those in there, and we'll get to them as they come in. All right. So so did you want to answer this question, or did you okay, perfect. Thank you so much. As I want to make sure I'm like, let me be respectful and make sure I welcome you with the space. And that's perfectly fine, my love. And so moving over into a positive light. When did you ever feel empowered? Was there a time that you ever felt empowered? What was the positive times that you remember, if any? Who were the positive people or influences? What did they do to make you feel supportive? I know we talked about some of the things that, you know, social workers and caregivers did to make you guys feel safe and make you guys feel like you could, you know, express yourself, or what they didn't do. So what were some of the positive aspects, and who were some of the positive influences that, you know, that played a role in your experience, and who were those people?
I can answer that. You know, so after, like, I think it was my experience after the foster care system and getting connected, like, as I said, like, with youth advocates who were former foster youth, and getting connected, like, with the empowerment organizations, right? Such as like Foster Media Connections and California Youth Connection. When I was able to see my community of former foster youth, like, I just love us so much. I just am so proud of us. And typically, the ones I think who are involved with organizations like Fostering Media Connections or California Youth Connection, I would venture to say that being a part of these organizations does impact your trajectory, right? Because I know we know a lot of stats about former foster youth and the negative outcomes, but being a part of organizations where former foster youth come together to empower themselves, and then because as a former foster youth, I think oftentimes you already do feel othered, and that belonging piece, that what we were sharing about, right? And so when you come together, there's kind of like this shared camaraderie of knowing that pain, and also like still coming together. Like, that's a big feat in and of itself. So, all that to say, I would say that being able to be my full self with current and former foster youth, that was empowering. Like, without um, this kind of looming concern about the system and how the system's going to perceive me and how my foster parents are going to perceive me, I felt most comfortable with us. So I could say that was empowering.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. So empowering. We're going to talk about advice in our final question. And I think that that would have been a perfect segue into that. So thank you so much. Dominique, Mariah, Sabrina, please feel free to chime in with your positive influences. I know, Sabrina, you spoke highly about your foster mom and what she did to, you know, make you feel supportive. So Dominique and Mariah, do you care to share your experiences, the positive impact and influences that you had while in foster care?
Oh, okay. So the positive impact that was like empowering for me to finally like be me and express myself for who I am was around the time like it was moving on to my second year of being in that foster home. I met this wonderful group. They're called the LA Opportunity Youth Collaborative, like shortly known as LAOYC. And within that group, I like met a bunch of other people like from foster care or who are currently in foster care that, you know, shared their experiences. There was LGBTQ people that were also like included too. So that for me like was really eye-opening that there was people out there who like has been in similar situations close to me and has like been able to push on and like speak up. So I think that's like what led me to be able to be me and be able to like speak up about like what I was going through, how the system works, how the system was just unjustified for most of us that were in it.
Thank you, Mariah. Dominique, please feel free to chime in. I know that you had unmuted yourself.
I would say two people. One was my teacher that I met in my bad behavior. Well, it's called private school, but bad behavior. It was a crazy school, crazy kids. But she stayed in contact with me because she just seen something in me. And I remember her coming to my champagne party. Everybody knows the champagne party is the going away from your prom. That's how supportive she was. She popped up. I didn't know she would because I sent her the address. I'm like, she ain't gonna come. I don't wanna go to that school no more. I done moved on. And she came and surprised. I was like, that meant a lot because she knew, like, whether she knew about me or not, she knew about me now. But where I'm going with this is that support of knowing, like, oh my God, you a tease or whatever, you had bad behavior, like you graduated high school, you going to prom, like look at you, Dom, you doing something, like that meant a lot. And then as well, I have a close cousin of mine. Her name is Shanice. I feel like that's the first person I came out to when I was like age 17, 18. And she had a bunch of other LGBTQ friends. So she introduced me to them and took me to like all of like West Hollywood parties. And it was just an experience. Um, it was just funny because it was like she was excited because she's like, oh, thank you. Like, it just made me feel welcome because she was like, it's one thing to call somebody they don't know what to do with you, or or it's somebody you come out and they like, I'm about to go, we about to do this, we about to do that. I'm like, look at you coming up with all these activities. Well, calm down. But I would say that those are the two people, and then just like I do photography. I feel like that was something I was able to express maybe by just meeting certain people or being as creative as I could be or being a part of certain events or certain things. I knew I was doing something right or it made me feel important to me because that is generally something I like to do and I love to do, but it just made me feel like, all right, this is, I can express this and let it come out however it comes out. But yeah, that's it.
Yes, letting it come out how it comes out. I love that. I love that a lot. And so thank you so much for all of you guys for sharing your perspective on that question. And so my last question before we dive into our questions in the chat, I would like for you guys to offer that one piece of advice to a foster youth, that one piece of advice to a social worker or a caregiver or someone that works at a school or a therapist. What is that one advice that you could offer them that they can take away from your experience, from this conversation, from experiences of other foster youth who are members of the LGBTQ community that have expressed that they've dealt with homophobia in the system and how it has negatively or positively influenced or played an impact in their life. What's that one piece of advice that you can offer them? And any of you guys can feel free to chime in, or Dominique, you're on the screen, so I'll just jump in and kick it over to you first.
Okay. One piece of advice. It's kind of heavy because it's so different for everybody. But for the youth, so the attorneys, the the social workers that are in the room, if your youth is responding physically at school grounds for whatever reason, try to really dive into why. Maybe it's not about their sexuality, it could be about other things, but if they've been open about what they've been experiencing, whether it's been, I've been teased, ask them teased about what specifically and from who. And it's not to attack that person who it is, but identify why is that happening. And if it's something constant, they just a third, fourth time, fifth time, just seek out resources for them, I would say, for just for social work or just people who have youth that they're adopted or they have under their household. That would just be helpful because I say this like I was like a kung fu fighter, right? I wasn't like out here. It took for me to like get kicked out of public school and placed into bad behavior school to know like, oh my God, like I got old enough to realize I think after graduating high school, like, okay, like I'm not reacting this way because I can go to juvenile hall, I can go to jail. Like those are real things because you want to fight somebody because of what they said. Like you just can't do that. So it's just important to kind of really nip that in the bud to let them know like people are going to people because no matter what age you're going to run into like bad people, like bad apples, right? It's always something that life is going to happen. It's how we react and respond to it. So I would say that for the adults and for the youth who identify as gay, whatever you identify as, you know, try your best to find a safe space as far as that one person or organization, um, or just constantly meditate a lot. Prayer depends what your beliefs are, but just you got to really be strong for yourself. That is how, you know, not like you can depend on people. I depend on people, but there's battles that you got to deal with yourself, and you got to wake up in the morning and deal with it yourself. And you know your reality when you clock back into work. You know your reality when you go back to that classroom. You know how that one person make you feel. You know. And as much as you can ask for help and tell somebody, you have to figure out what you need to do. Maybe remove yourself from that class. Can I get to another class? Can I get removed from this home? I don't like this organization. Let me go to another organization. You have to ask those questions to yourself. But if you have someone that's an adult, that's an authority that you can bring it up to, that's safe, then you know, by all means bring it up to them. But that's hard to identify too. So I've been there. But yeah, the journey is a journey that is continuing at any age because we all adults and we only gonna get older. So just try to your best to respond as positive as you can. And if you can't, try to find that one friend or sibling you could just talk to, you know, to express how you feel. Therapist is wonderful, right? You can say whatever till you know you can't say whatever, but you can say whatever, and their job is to listen. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I can share next. And okay, so thank you to the folks that are staying on because I do think that this is a really important piece, right? And I would say for the system, like how could we have improved the system, or what are some things that social workers could do? It is pretty heavy, like Dominique said, because there's so many things and there's so many stages at which we can implement different things, right? Like if you're foster care abolitionist, you might see it in a different way. But if we're talking about real life now, at this moment, some things that I would say is perhaps we could create like some literature to share with youth for different developmental stages about how all of them is welcome. Their hurt is welcome, their emotions are welcome, their love is welcome, their personality is welcome, their sexuality, sexual orientation is welcome, all of that, right? I would say that's one thing we could do. Another thing that we could do, like based on my personal experience, I wasn't sure if I shared with my social worker how much they would be sharing with my parents. And I didn't know how they would share it with my parents. And so I think if we can have, I don't know if openness is the right word, but openness around what kind of communication is going on between my social worker and my parents. I had no idea what that looks like. I have no idea what they're learning, how they're changing, or if they're even changing. So, more transparency around that. Creating like kind of maybe like a community circle where we can be a bit more open. And I understand that's tricky, but I would say that. Um, Yeah, those are like two tangible pieces that I could offer. And as far as like youth go who are in the system and identify as gay or queer or what have you, um, I would say don't let people project their hate on you. Don't let people project their hate on you. Please don't internalize that projection. And I'll also say, and this is for members of the community and for youth only, I would also say that one beautiful thing about being like marginalized, I say this from my positionality and I speak for myself, is that when you have to deal with so much projection or stigma from just being who you are, it leads you sometimes to this path of discovery to figure out what is going on. Why are people behaving this way? And when you go on that path of discovery, that can be really fruitful and that can really ignite you as a healer, as a service provider. And so being able to do that can be really powerful and potent. But I wouldn't say that to excuse any abuse or hatred or anything like that. So, yeah, those are the pieces that I would share.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I wanted to make sure that you got as much advice to all entities that you best saw see fit this, because I think that everybody could take away something from all of these experiences. And so I wanted to dive into some of the questions in the chat. We do have a few. So I wanted to make sure that we get to some of them at least before we close out. And so one of the questions that came in, and this was directed specific to your experiences dealing with the social workers. What could they have done, or what could they have, how could they have helped you feel more comfortable and confident in your sexuality? And so Dominique, Sabrina, Manpreet, please feel free to chime in if you would like to answer that question. I know that you said that you had one that you wanted to answer. All right, and so the next question that I saw was, it says wasn't using two panelists. Did you ever experience a relationship that grew closer as a result of overcoming the bias, their bias with your help? And so essentially, was there ever someone that you met that had a biasness towards your what you identified with, and then that relationship through your experiences and expressions and emotions and conversations ended up flourishing into a positive relationship?
I would say for me, I always put for me because it is so different, but somebody could identify. I decided to get a mentor around age 22, 23. His name is Michael. He identified as bi. And that has just been exceptional, right? I didn't grow up with a father or male figure growing up. I did have a big brother, but he had went to jail for 10 years, got out, and yeah. But we still talk. But that helped me a lot just because I was able to see a confident Black male be himself and be open about his story, introduce me to his other gay peers, and introduce me to a certain lifestyle that he's into as far as parties or events, or just, if you don't have a circle of friends that identifies you, how do you be yourself? You could be yourself, but like, do you see me for me? If you aren't identified, you can, but it's like, it gets like, okay, the conversation gets not, a lot. But that was helpful because I decided to get a mentor, and that relationship has grown so much because, as I do photography, he'll hire me for certain events. He's close friends with like Beyonce makeup artist. He tried to get me something with her, but she's very like picky. But he told me like, hey, like I tried, but they like literally like best friends and shit. He like does, sorry, more profanity. But it just grew a lot because I was like, okay, I need somebody to talk to about how I'm feeling about certain things, whether that's male partners or how to yeah, so that helped a lot. So I don't know if that answers, yeah.
No, it definitely answered. You definitely answered it. Thank you so much. Did you want to chime in, Sabrina, Mariah? Did you guys want to chime in for that question from one of our audience members? I believe we have two more, and then we will go in. So the second to last question someone asks is, did you ever sense from other LGBTQ foster kids that they were discriminated or ignored from foster staff or foster siblings or parents? He says, us being closeted, we do recognize hate when we see it, and we see it from others. So did you guys ever experience hate from other foster youth that were members of the community? And what was that experience like?
Can I chime in for this one?
Yes.
Okay, so at my old foster home, I've only ever been to one foster home, just because like I didn't like the idea of just moving around and starting new schools and being the new kid. Yeah, I didn't like that. So there's this one person that everyone, and like when I say everyone, I mean everyone in that foster house did not like for some reason. And they were also LGBTQ. And like, you know, I would feel bad because like they didn't do anything to deserve that. So I would be that one person to always talk to them and, you know, like help them out when they needed help and always support them throughout everything. Like my foster mom and the other foster kids just strongly did not like this person. And I don't know why. Like to this day, I still don't know why they didn't like him, accept him for like who he is or anything like that. So, you know, like we would go out and I would just talk with him and like he'll just rant to me, and like the things he tells me, like I keep it to myself, you know. I don't go around and telling everyone else his business because I have no right to do that. I have no say to do that. So for that, like it really did help us become closer. Like now we're not in contact, but there's times where I think about that person and I hope like, you know, they're doing well out in life. So that's what I experienced about.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mariah, for sharing your insight. Did any of our other panelists want to chime in on that question? All right, so one final question from one of our panelists that says safety. Safety is a word that comes up a lot in foster care. Sometimes I wonder if the meaning of it gets lost within the system. So they want to ask, what does safety mean to you? And how have others in your life shown you that you are safe with them?
Can I answer this one?
Yes.
Okay. So for me, safety means to like be protected, but not overly protected. You know, like not where it's to a point where someone's making the decision for you, making the like choices for you, and not even listening to you. So for me, being protected is just being protected by those who love you. Like it's like a comfort blanket. And I actually had that one person in the foster system. It was my foster sister at the same foster house. Her name was Monica, and she was that safety person for me. She was the one that, like, you know, it was like for both of us, like, I would help her and comfort her whenever she was going through hard things that she just couldn't express or, like, you know, tell the foster parent, because how the foster parent, like, would report it or, like, tell other people. And then they'll just, like, view her as something different. Because at my foster house, like, sorry, this is kind of off topic, but like at my foster house, it was just how my foster mom got kids was like she hears about how they are first, and automatically as soon as like before they even walk in through that door, when I tell you, she based them off everything she heard from the social worker without actually getting to know the kid and like knowing why they reacted to the situation the way they did, why they are the way they are. She doesn't know, like, she doesn't want to understand their past, and like she would try so hard to be like compassionate in front of them and then turn around and talk smack. I don't like that. I don't like the two-face. I don't like none of that. And like when she first got here, Monica, everyone like based her off of that. So like everyone was kind of like her spy. For my foster mom, everyone in that house was kind of like her spy to tell her like how Monica was doing, you know, basically reporting her moves and stuff. And I didn't like that. Like I didn't go about it that way. So like whenever I would go out with Monica, like we would just go to the store and, you know, go on walks and we would just talk. And it was just like same thing I did with her and my other foster sibling, Alex. Like whatever she tells me, I keep it to me and we would just talk about it. But it was thanks to Monica that I was able to like get through that foster home. And towards the end, like we eventually did end up speaking up about the mental abuse we went through in that foster home with the social worker. And it was thanks to that she got moved to a better foster home, and then I went off to college. So I was glad for that.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. It's always good to hear, despite, the circumstances or the experience, that there's, some light and positivity at the end of the tunnel. And one of the things that you touched on that I always encourage foster youth is to just speak up, like find that one person, especially if you are experiencing any type of abuse on any type of level, speak up, like, the years of his suffering and healing that comes with not speaking up, definitely plays a huge impact on, your life and your development. And so, that's why, I appreciate safe spaces like this. And I really, really want to just thank all of our panelists for being here with us today, for answering all of our lovely questions. Thank you to all of our audience members who had questions for us and dropped them in the chat that introduced themselves. At this time, I want to drop in a post-evaluation link that you will see in the chat. This will help us, further know like what we could be doing better, what I could be doing better as, a program leader, leading these discussions, what type of topics you'll be interested in speaking about. If you're a former foster youth and you're interested in being a panelist and sharing your experience, this is an opportunity for you to leave your information. Social workers, caregivers, we often host collaborative webinars where we're often looking for social workers and CASA workers who are interested in speaking up about their work and how they support foster youth in these sometimes safe, unsafe places. And so I want to again thank everybody for being here. You will see these a list of resources for those who are experiencing any abuse, who need to speak up about bullying or any of the sorts. We want to make sure that we're always providing different links so that you guys can be able to find some resources. And all of this will be included in your follow-up email along with the recording of this conversation. Please feel free to share it with your network. We are going to be hosting our next conversation July 21st, right here at 10 a.m. Pacific Coast time. I don't know why I cannot speak today. We're going to be talking to New York foster youth who've had experience with the child welfare system in New York, and they're going to be talking about transitional age issues that have impacted their ability to be successful and succeed. And so, if you would like to join us here for our next conversation, the link will be provided to you in the chat. Last but not least, certainly not least, if you would like to support Youth Voice, especially all of our opportunities are paid, including these webinar discussions. We want to help foster youth amplify their voices. We want to help find and create spaces for foster youth to be able to feel empowered and special. So if you would like to donate to Youth Voice to help us, we are hosting a summer fundraising campaign to support the program and all of our participants and everything that comes into making sure that all of our foster youth and program participants get everything that they need and desire. We're also hosting a back to school drive to cater to high school foster youth and those who are college bound, who need that extra support. I know that when I was transitioning from emancipated from the system and transitioning into college, I literally didn't have nothing. I didn't know that I needed anything, and thanks to one of my mentors, Ms. Stewart and Mrs. Johnson. They helped me get my essentials, and we want to support 200 foster youth by providing them some essentials to help them, decorate their dorm rooms, to help them get to school. So if you're interested in donating, that gift cards, pencils, paper, pens, backpacks, we already have them. We've been sponsored by Doing Good Works, 200 backpacks to support foster youth. And we're also going to be doing some dorm room makeovers for some foster youth as well. So if you are interested in supporting our initiatives, all of this information will be provided to you in your follow-up email. We also have an Amazon wish list that will also make your contribution and contributing to our Back to the Future drive successful and much needed. I wanted to thank everybody again today for being here. Thank you for joining us and listening to this powerful conversation. If you would like to stay updated and informed about all of the wonderful things that we are doing here for foster youth and those who have been impacted by the child welfare system and juvenile justice system here at the Youth Voice Program and Foster Media Connections, please follow us on our social medias. You can learn more about us at Foster Media Connections /Youth Voice. Youth Voice. We have stories. Read about the stories that are come firsthand account experiences from foster youth. And if you would like to support, the link is also there. Again, I want to thank all of our audience members for showing up. I know that some of you guys are at work, some of you guys have other obligations, but these conversations are needed, and it's folks like you that help show up and participate in these type of events that will, help share the content and the knowledgeable information that you learn. So hopefully that we can continue to try to amplify youth voices of foster youth and those who have been impacted by the juvenile justice system. And so until next time, I want to thank you all again. Thank you to our lovely panelists. Thank you to Sarah, our wonderful communication and engagement leader, who literally facilitates and helps me with putting together these webinars. And I really can't thank you enough. And so until next time, you guys have a great day. Happy Thursday and have a great weekend. We'll be seeing you guys soon.